Today I'm going to be making a pricking iron, which is a leatherworking tool that is used to lay out the stitch line when you're going to sew two pieces of leather together. Hi, I'm Dennis Frechette and welcome back. Today I'm continuing my series on leatherworking tools and I'm going to be making a pricking iron. I'm just going to be making one. I'm going to explain the math on how to lay it all out, and you can make as many as you want. The process is exactly the same, so if you know how to make one, you can go ahead and make the whole set. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoy it. I might as well get the math out of the way first. Pricking irons are usually sized by the number of teeth that they have per inch. What you're looking at on the screen is a green box that is 1 inch across, and I have the first tooth laid out, which is 0.0625 inches. I'm working in thousandths of an inch because my dial caliper is in thousandths, and I also have absolutely no idea how to convert this into metric. Next, you need to divide the remainder of the space by the number of teeth that are going to be in that space. In this case, I'm making a 10 teeth per inch pricking iron, so there are going to be 9 teeth in this space. And each space is going to be 0.104 inches across. Finally, I just need to lay out the tooth, which is the 0.0625 inches, and that's going to be on the right-hand side, of course, because there's going to be a space in between each tooth. And this is the pattern that follows all the way down the line. Now, the reason I chose to do a pricking iron that has 10 teeth is because the slot that's in between each tooth is 40 thousandths of an inch, and there isn't anything readily available that can cut that hole unless you have a slot cutter that can be fitted into a milling machine or a lathe. So the first thing that we need to do is make a chisel that's about this wide. I'm going to be making the chisel from a short length of coil spring. This one happens to be 3/8 of an inch in diameter. I cut out a number and rough forged them into blanks, so normally I can just regrind them and go straight to heat treating, but this time I'm going to have to remove quite a bit of material, so I'm going to forge it as close to the final dimensions as possible. I'd rather be at the anvil than at the grinder. I'm getting close. I have to be about half the thickness of the smallest slot that I have in my gauge. Here I'm a little further along, and I'm just going to heat it up to a dull red heat and let it cool slowly. This helps to relieve a lot of the stress that's in the metal that could cause warping. I'll do this 2 or 3 times. At this point, the chisel slides easily into the smallest hole that I have in my gauge, which is 1/16 of an inch wide. It has to be about just a little over half of that thickness, so I need to use a file to get down to the final dimensions. Now I'm at the thickness that I need, so I can start turning this blank into an actual working chisel. The filing jig that I'm using is just a heavy piece of angle iron that has a couple of bars welded to each side. That allows me to use a drill press clamp to hold everything down. The holes along the front edge are just to put pins or bolts that I can use as stops to chisel or file up against. Now the chisel is basically complete. I've already hardened it. I quench it in canola oil. It's an oil hardening steel. And now I'm just using a torch to draw the temper. When you're drawing a temper, it's really important to take your time and let the heat build up to the tip very, very slowly. So you can see how I'm holding the torch way back. I'm getting that area hot, and I'm going to let that area start heating up the front of the chisel. If I try to force it and heat the front too quickly, you'll just get a false temper. You'll have colors that are showing on the surface, but the whole cross section of the metal is not that temperature. So you're going to have tools that are going to chip or break or crack, fail in some way. So it's important to have the heat right through the whole cross section of the blade. And the temper color that I'm going for is just kind of a dark straw color, so it shows up fairly early in the process. So you want to make sure you don't have too big of a head of steam built up there. It's just going to shoot past that temperature. So again, it's worth taking your time. Now it's time to test it by making a new notch in my chisel gauge. I never thought I'd need one this narrow. And as you can see, I'm finally ready to cut the teeth in this thing. I'm using a spade bit as the material, and I'd like to thank Damascus Teeth for recommending that to me. It's the perfect bar stock for it. This is a narrow one. It's only 5/8. I didn't have a 1-inch spade bit, so it's still a 10 teeth per inch pricking iron, but I'm only able to fit 6 teeth on this blank, so it doesn't really matter. I have no idea when I would ever be sewing anything this tiny. So I just wanted to show you how to do this in case you wanted to be doing some super fine work. I can barely see this thing, so I can't imagine sewing anything this small. I prep the blank by heating it up to a red heat and letting it cool slowly to soften it as much as I can, the same way I did earlier with the chisel. And I filed the surface smooth and clean, put some marker on it, and I used my dial calipers to transfer all the lines onto the surface. And now I'm starting to cut away the waste areas between the teeth. So here's what the pricking iron looks like at this point. I haven't heat treated it yet. I need to do a little bit more filing, and I picked up this one tooth in the middle that's a little bit wider than the rest. The points seem to be in the right spot. I just need to reshape the teeth to make them look a little more symmetrical. I also need to thin down the profile quite a bit so they cut a finer hole into the leather.